Hi everyone! I've been making a lot of videos with Turner Acryl Gouache lately. They're acrylic gouache paints and I really like them. But many of you have asked if I have tried the acrylic gouache by Holbein and how they compare. I did try them quite a while ago, just a couple of times, and then I tried the Turner acrylic gouache and I really liked it. And somehow I kept on going to them rather than the Holbein ones. So I'm used to use these rather than the Holbein acrylic gouache. And I thought that to answer your question, I should start using the Holbein acrylic gouache more to get used to that as well. Then I would be able to give you my opinion on both of them. Although I don't really like to give my opinion on two different brands of the same type of paint because really, liking a particular art supply depends on who you are and what your style is, what your technique is. So it's not very objective in my opinion. For today's video, I decided to paint a couple of mushrooms, warming up with the small mushroom with the Turner acrylic gouache because I'm familiar with it. So to me, it's easy to use and I know what to expect. And once I'm warmed up with that one, then I'll use the Holbein acrylic gouache. And that way I'll be able to get a feel for both of them and see how they compare. Now you need to know that I have quite a few tubes of the Turner acrylic gouache because I really like it. And I only have a set of 18 of the Holbein. That said, I thought the subject was easy enough and the colors were simple enough that I would be able to find all the colors in both brands. So like I said, I started with the Turner acryl and I was very comfortable with it. I have the habit now of using a stay wet palette with those. I know you can't see it on the screen because I use such a big sketchbook. I didn't have the room to show you the palette as well. But it is a stay wet palette and the way I use it is that I soak the sponge and then I wring it. I do not want too much water on it just because I noticed in the past that the paint tends to liquefy too much if the sponge is too wet. But that way when the sponge is just moist, it really keeps my paint fresh as if I had just squeezed it out of the tube. If I use a ceramic palette, then the paint will dry very fast, just like acrylic paint. And then I tend to waste too much of it. So right away applying the paint on the mushroom cap, it's very easy for me because I like that it dries really fast. And so I can add all my layers right away and work really fast. But it stays wet long enough that if you're working in a small area, you can blend colors together if you need to. But I get used to just work with layers and just add a layer on top of another and really not think of it too much because, like for instance with watercolor, you really have to plan your painting so that your colors don't mix and don't bleed into each other while they're still wet. The reason why I like the Turner acryl gouache is that it dries so fast that I can just paint wherever I want without even thinking about it. And it's so opaque that I don't even have to think about painting from light to dark, dark to light. It really doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. It's very flexible. The consistency on the palette is very creamy. It's kind of between acrylic and oil, so it's not as thick and creamy as oils, but not as liquid. Well, I guess there are some heavy body acrylics, but I find that it's creamier than acrylic in general. You do have to add a little bit of water on your paint to make it flow nicely on the paper, but you don't need to add very much. Once you're familiar with the paint and you find the right ratio of water, then you're good to go. It's just a matter of practicing, really. So I was really happy with that first mushroom. And then I went to the bigger mushroom, and I picked the bigger mushroom for the Holbein acrylic gouache on purpose because I wanted to have enough surface to paint and to get more familiar with it. So when I poured the paint on the palette, right away I noticed that it was more liquid. It's not as thick as the Turner paint. There's not a very big difference, but enough that sometimes it feels like you just have to pour it on the palette rather than squeeze it. It comes right out, so you have to be careful and not be messy. But because it's more liquid, it seems to be less opaque, more streaky. That said, once you add a second layer, then it's all nice and opaque and beautiful. So that's really not a big deal. But I noticed that on the paper, it dries slower than the Turner acrylic gouache. So you need to take your time and check if your layers are dry before you add more to them. Otherwise, it'll feel sticky, and to me, it really reminds me of acrylic paint. That said, maybe you can blend them more easily, but it seems like the blending time is short, but the drying time is slow. Like, it goes too fast to blend them. You can if you, like with the Turner ones, if you paint on a small surface and you go quick, you can blend them very well. But if you wait just a little bit too much, it's too late and they're sticky. So it's hard to blend them. You end up with a streaky mess. But then you cannot add another layer on top of it because they're sticky, they're not dry yet. So you need to wait and paint somewhere else or use a hairdryer. I have tried in the past to use them in a wet palette and added too much water to the sponge, and they were totally liquid once I reused them the following day. But now that I've tried using the sponge just moist, like I mentioned earlier, it works very well, and you can just reuse them, take breaks and reuse them the following day. They work just fine. In fact, they've been in my palette. I haven't cleaned it up yet for a couple of days, and they look great. They look fresh still and not liquid. Something else that I noticed is that because they're a bit more liquid, obviously they're less opaque right out of the tube. And I especially noticed that with the white. I need to add more layers of the white for the Holbein brand than with the Turner brand. The Turner brand, I can get an opaque white much faster. So all in all, I don't think there's a better brand. I've used the Turner brand a lot more, and I get used to it and really like it, and I've adapted my technique to it, and so I'm very comfortable with those. But when I use the Holbein Acryla, the technique that I use with the Turner doesn't work as well, so I need to adjust it so that I get a nice result. So yes, I was a little bit frustrated at first, but then I got going, and then it turned out fine. I'm gonna say for my technique, I prefer the Turner. But they're both very beautiful paints. They're very pigmented. The colors are beautiful. A little bit goes a long way for both of them. And if you like that your paint dries fast and you like working with layers quickly, the Turner will be the best one for you. But if you'd rather have a little bit more open time, and I'd even say if you're more used to using acrylic, then the Holbein might be a better match for you. So if you're not sure, instead of buying a set of each, just buy a couple tubes of each and try them out and see which one you like best. I hope this will have answered some of your questions. If you have more, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're feeling generous and you would like to support this channel, please click on the thanks button, which is located right next to the share button. Thank you all for stopping by today. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I'll see you soon with another video. Bye-bye.